Assalomu alaykum, hurmatli ko'ruvchilar. Sharq Turkiston ovozining kundalik xabarlarini ko'rishingizni qarshi olamiz. Xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sudi. Balkim ko'pinchimiz bu ismni ko'p anglagan bo'lishimiz mumkin. Yaqinda Sharq Turkiston surgun hukumatining safarbarlik qilishi bilan Xitoy tajovuzchilari ustidan bu sudga arz sunildi. Ondaqda bu sud Sharq Turkistondagi Xitoy tajovuzchilarining zulmida ingrayotgan Sharq Turkiston xalqiga, shundaqla muhojiratdagi Sharq Turkistonliklarning hayotiga qanday ta'sirlarni olib keladi? Sharq Turkistonliklardan bu sudning muvaffaqiyatli bo'lishi uchun nimalar talab qilindi? Bu vaqtdagi savollarimizga javob topish uchun yaqinda Sharq Turkiston surgun hukumatining rahbarlari, shundaqla xalqarалық advokatlardan Rodney Dixon apandi qatorliqlar ishtirok qilgan to'r yig'inini diqqatingizga sundiq. Tuvanda diqqatinglar ekranimizda bo'lsin.
Erkin Asya Radyosu'ndaki bir muhbiri bunda soraptı. Çin degan bir muhbir soraptı. Yani nima uchun Xitoy bu kadar zo'riqib Tojikiston iborat buna kichik bir davlatdagi Uyg'urlarni tutib ekirib ketishga bu kadar zo'riqidi yoki buning uchun harakat qiladi? Buning sababi nimadir?
I will start by answering it, and then others can add. This is precisely the kind of issue that we're asking the ICC prosecutor to investigate. Why are these actions going on? What is the real intention behind them? It's through the investigation of these crimes that can be uncovered. Our findings so far from the evidence that we have discovered, given the way in which this rounding up process is taking place, the fact that force is being used, that abuse is being used, shows that the intention is to silence Uyghurs and crush them, to make sure that they have no voice outside of China and that they're brought back in to China, into East Turkestan, and then controlled and targeted and exterminated there. That's what the pattern of the evidence shows so far, and that's what needs to be further investigated. It's the genocidal intent and the intent to commit widespread crimes against humanity that is shown in this kind of behavior. Why, you're right to ask the question, why would you go to those kind of lengths? Why would you fortify the border areas in those ways? It's in order, from the evidence that we have gathered, to ensure that the Uyghur voice is crushed and destroyed. And it's not only happening in Tajikistan, it's happening in many other countries as well. I mean, why are persons being brought back from Cambodia, from Egypt, from Saudi Arabia, from Turkey, from so many different countries? Why is there surveillance and intimidation going on in places like Australia? This is all evidence that we've submitted to show that it is linked, that there's a concerted campaign here to make sure that there's maximum control, that no one can speak out, and that persons can then be persecuted in a ruthless fashion away from the international spotlight inside China. I mean, this is not unusual for genocides and mass crimes against humanity around the world. Even sitting right here in Holland today, Jewish persons in the Second World War were rounded up en masse in this very country and taken into Germany and then targeted and exterminated. That kind of tactic has been used in many other genocides and crimes against humanity. And we're seeing exactly the same practice here, either because the authorities there have learned from previous actions or they know how they need to do it to ensure an effective outcome. But that's precisely why this is such an important case for the prosecutor to look at and to signal that it is being looked at, that this kind of behavior, which say has a pattern from the past, cannot continue, and it is going to be stamped out through an investigation and through charging persons for undertaking these kinds of appalling acts.
Thank you for that, Rodney. I don't know if anyone else had anything else to add to that answer. Otherwise, perhaps Dr. Allah, you can give a summary of that answer in Uyghur, if possible. Oh, you're muted again.
Cevapninki qisqacha mazmuni shu. Yani bu savolda nima uchun Xitoyninki bu qadar zo'riqib, bu qadar intayin buningda yanma kichik bir davlatdagi Uyg'urlarni akirib ketishining asosiy sabablarining birisi bu Uyg'urlarning ovozini bo'g'ish. Ham bu orqali ularni Xitoyga qaytarib ekitib, ondan keyin ularni kontrol qilish va eng oxirisida ularni yo'qotishdan iborat shunday bir maqsad. Bu maqsad dal bu qatliamning maqsadi. İnsoniyatga qarshi elib berilgan jinoyatning maqsadi bo'ldi. Shu sababdan biz buni ko'ramiz. Bundaq bu xil taktika ilgari Ikkinchi dunyo urushidagi Yahudi qatliamidan bo'lgan. Yahudilik nimaninki mo natsistlarniki mo Yahudilar qarta elib borgan butkul yo'qotishninki qatliam maqsadi va uning usullari mana shu o'xshash shaklda bo'lgan. Hattoki men bugun turib mush davlatda, ya'ni Gollandiyadami nurg'unlagan Yahudilar o'xshash usulda tutilib, bir yerga yig'ilib, anandan keyin jazo lagerlariga avatilib, shu yerda yo'qotilgan. Endi bu ularningki eng oxirgi nimasi Uyg'urlarningki hech qanday ovozini chiqarmaslik, ularningki bu ishlarni oshkorlash qatorliqni oldini olish qatorliq jihatlarda Xitoyninki bu qadar zo'riqishninki sababi mana shu. Bu jihat ilib o'tgan vaqtda bu ilgirki qatliamni epag'ichlar jumladan natsistlar bilan Xitoylarning o'rtasidagi biz bundaq bir taktik jihatdagi, ya'ni qatliam epirishlik taktik jihatdagi o'rtaqlikni bayqay olamiz. Shuning uchun bu savolning javobi shuki, Xitoylarning bu qadar Xitoy hukumatining bu qadar jafo chekib ketishining sababi asosan Uyg'urlarning ovozini bo'g'ish, ham ularni qo'rqitish, eng oxirisi ularni yo'qotish. O'zi qaytarib ekilib davlat Xitoyning ichiga kirib olgandan keyin yo'qotishni ko'zlaydi.
Thank you for that. There are no other English questions that have come through. Dr. Alla, I don't know if you can see the comments bar on the left of this, on the right of the screen, if there's anything in Uyghur that we've missed.
Just a second, let me just...
I believe.
No questions in Uyghur so far.
Okay.
No questions.
Okay. Something's just come through, I'm not sure.
But people have expressed the best wishes for the success of this case. So that's the translation, but no questions have ever forwarded.
Oh, that's very kind. Thank you very much to them. Perhaps, Dr. Alla, do you think there's anything that we might have missed out that you would like us to describe a bit further? Similarly, Prime Minister and Mr. President, if there's anything else that you believe that needs a bit further description from the legal team, please let us know before we wrap up.
There's one last thing, it's not question, but it's just comment, but it would be a bit interesting. Let me turn it into a question form that perhaps some Uyghurs are a little bit confused about the nature of the Uyghur tribunal in London, which has finished quite recently, and also the case to be submitted to the International Criminal Court. So can anybody give the audience the differences between two processes, but also some kind of interrelatedness in these two processes as well?
That's a very important question, and it must be clarified so that everyone knows that the tribunal that's doing its work in London is doing a fantastic job in getting evidence of the alleged genocide and crimes against humanity together, persons coming to testify before it. We are in contact with that tribunal and would like to share whatever evidence we can. The problem is that we can't necessarily do that now because it's all confidential and going to the ICC. But if there's anything that can be shared, we would want to do that, and vice versa, if they have anything that can assist us. So we're working together it's essential to know that this isn't some kind of competition. It's working together for the same end. The tribunal there is gathering particularly evidence of what's happening inside of China. We are looking for ICC purposes at getting evidence which happened abroad in ICC state parties and continued into China, because that's how we can get jurisdiction. But it covers the same underlying criminal conduct. So we are working closely. We want to continue that, and we want to ensure that there can be an exchange of evidence wherever that is possible. Of course, it's slightly more difficult for us because we are working with the ICC and the prosecutor, and we can't provide material that's confidential to that process and essential for that process going forward. But we'll try and see what can be done, because it would also be very helpful if that tribunal, in looking at what is going on, was able to comment on evidence of what was happening outside of China, and to support the need, depending on their findings, for an ICC investigation to be opened, because the tribunal will know that their powers are limited. They can't actually investigate, prosecute through charging persons at that tribunal. That they can make findings based on their evidence, but they can't take the next step of investigating and prosecuting persons. That's why the ICC process is so important, because it allows for an actual court case to be launched in the future if you've got sufficient evidence, and we can get persons detained if they travel outside of China. And if they don't, well, then there will be international arrest warrants which prevent them traveling, which in and of itself can be seen as a success. So the tribunal will know that it can only go so far, but we would hope that they will assist in providing us with information and encourage others to support the ICC process because of where it can lead in the future. So as I said, throughout my talk, that we need to be united on this. We all need to work together to ensure that, yes, the tribunal can do its work and bring out its findings, but then we can also get this investigation opened at the ICC, where we could then potentially have actual prosecutions in the future.
Thank you for that answer. Dr. Alla, if you'd like to translate, and then a few more questions have come through in English, which I'll ask after that.
Bu qısqacha tərcümə qılayım. Bu iki jarayan, yani Uyghur soti bilan şu Uyg'urlarninki ishini xalqarodagi birdan-bir shunday ishni surishtiradigan xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga sunish ikkisiniki mohiyat jihatdagi ba'zi bir farqlari bor. Yani birisi bu Uyg'ur soti şu Sharq Turkistonda bo'layotgan Uyg'urlar qaratilayotgan butkul shu Xitoy hukumati olib berayotgan jinoiy qilmishlarni faktlar asosida tekshirishni asos qiladi. Ammo bu xalqaro jinoiy soti faqat shu Xitoyning sirtidagi shu xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga a'zo bo'lgan davlatda Xitoyningki Uyg'urlarga qarshi olib berayotgan faoliyatlarini va buningki Xitoyning ichida davomlashayotgan va davomlashayotgan holatlarning hammasini va uningki Uyg'urlar qanchalik ziyon yetkazayotgan buni tekshirishni asos qiladi. Bu jihatda ilib aytgan vaqtda ikkisiniki nimasi o'xshamaydi. Ammo garchi ikkilisi ikki xil nuqtadan o'xshash qarasimi, lekin ularning qarayotgan masalasi eng oxirida o'xshash. Ya'ni bu Uyg'urlarninki hozirgi beshiga kelayotgan mana shu qatliamninki o'xshash bo'lmagan nuqtadan kuzatilishi va o'xshash nuqtadan bo'lmagan nuqtadan bir taraf qilinishini asos qiladi. Hamda bu Uyg'ur soti bu shu Uyg'urlarga elib berayotgan shu qat'iy kishilik huquq dafsanchilikni qarta bir nimani faktlarni to'plab bularni qilgan bo'lsa-mu, ammo ularninki mushu qatliamni va insoniyatga qarshi elib berilgan jinoyatni o'tkazishga qarta qonuniy jihatdan nimalar bo'lmaydi. Qonuniy jihatdan elib berilgan bosqichlar bo'lmaydi. Ammo xalqaro jinoiy ishlar qonuni soti agar mushu faktlarga asosan bu oshkora tekshirishni boshlasa va eng oxirida buningga qonuniy jihatdan hukm chiqarsa, bu vaqtda Uyg'urlarga qarshi elib berilayotgan mush jinoyatni bag'ich shaxslarga qarata qonuniy jazo yurgizdi. Masalan, u shaxslar Xitoyning sirtida sayohatga yoki Xitoyning sirtiga chiqib qolsa, shu shaxslar qaysi suratga chiqqan bo'lsa, shu yerda tutiladi, ya'ni shu yerda qonuniy javobgarlik uchraydi. Ammo gerçi bular o'ttirsa farqlar bo'lsinmi, ammo eng oxirisida har ikki jarayondagi Uyg'urlar masalasi, bu Uyg'urlarning hozirgi 5 yil o'tkazayotgan qatliamningki xalqarodagi tonilishi va ularningki bir bo'lib qonun jihatdan bir taraf qilinishi da intayin muhim roli var. Şuna bu ikkisi bu Uyg'urlarningki mushu qatliamningki bir taraf qilinishda intayin muhim bo'lgan bosqichlar qatoriga kirdi.
Thank you very much for that. Two more questions that have come through in English. The first one is asking if China would be able to have any effect, and I believe the person asking the question means pressure on the ICC to not open an investigation into the crimes. So would China be able to affect the ICC investigation? And the second question is, if we were to win the case, what would that look like? What would be the result? And so what would be the next steps after opening an investigation?
For the first question, the OTP under the outgoing prosecutor and the new prosecutor is a completely independent body. It does not answer to any state party or any states who are not signed up, or to the Security Council. That's the whole point of having this independent power to investigate and apply to open an investigation, is that the prosecutor can do it proprio moto, on his or her own accord and action. So China cannot stop the prosecutor from conducting this investigation. Yes, they might try and raise the stakes, they will complain, they will raise the counter arguments, but that's not going to stand in the way of an independent prosecutor looking at the investigation based solely on the evidence and nothing else. The way it would work in practice, and this is to move on to the next question, is that if the prosecutor decided to open an investigation, they would be able to conduct that investigation themselves independently, be able to go to Tajikistan like we have done, which is an ICC state party, and other states as well, that they could request to go to China. China wouldn't be bound to let them in, but we would encourage China, if there's nothing to hide, to cooperate with this investigation, to show that they have a defense. Everyone is entitled, of course, to put their version of events as well, and they could do that in an investigation. But the prosecutor would be able to go to all other countries outside of China to gather that evidence and to build a case, and if there was sufficient evidence, then to bring the charges. So the answer is a very short no, that China cannot stop this happening. But in order for it to happen, we need to make sure we can continue, that we can get the evidence and build up the case as much as possible. So that's where we need to keep going, and we need your support for that end.
And the second question, Rodney, was about what happens next if an investigation were to be opened.
Well, I was saying that if it was, that the prosecutor would then himself look to gather the evidence. So we can, as we've been doing, provide evidence, but ultimately it would be the prosecutor who'd have to go and verify that evidence and collect the evidence themselves. We could remain involved in providing witnesses, in providing evidence, but it would need to be undertaken by the prosecutor then. And then a decision is made whether there's enough evidence to bring charges. And then you apply for an arrest warrant or arrest warrants on that basis. So that's what is the procedure. That's what lies further down the road. We've got to get over the first stage now of getting the investigation open first. That's the critical point. Once that happens, then all of these steps will be allowed to unfold, of actually gathering all the evidence and looking to bring the charges and have trials when persons are arrested.
Thank you for that. Dr. Ala, over to you.
Şu Xitaylarninki bu qitimliqi xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotininki o'ziga sunilgan mushu arzni qartab to'xtatadigan qudrati bormi yoki mumkinchiligi bormi degan savolga Rodney apandimning javobi shuki, uni hargiz to'sanmaydi. Hattoki u Xitoy masalan Xitoy hukumati garchi bu xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga topshirilgan bu nimalarga qarata paketlarga qarata qarshi paketlarni qo'yishi ham o'zini oqlashi bunun qarshi o'zini oqlashi mumkin bu ishlarni qila oladi ammo bu jarayonning hech nimasini to'solmaydi. Bu jarayonda oldi bilan bu nimalar paketlar qaralg'uchi prosecutorga qaralg'uchi suniladi. Qaralg'uchi bularning hammasini ko'rib chiqib, hatto o'zi mayli u er yoki ayol bo'lsin, u o'zi shu xalqaro jinoiy ishlar sotiga tava bo'lgan davlatga, masalan, bizning hozirgi ishimizda bu davlat Tojikistonga berib, o'zi bir qo'lliq yana boshqa paketlarni toplaydi va bu paketlarni to'plash orqali eng oxiri bu Uyg'urlarninki bu masalasi qarta tekshirishni boshlaydi. Bu ishdagi eng ochiqlik masala tekshirishninki boshlanishi, tekshirish boshlanib bo'lgandan keyin, anandan keyin bu yerda oxirisida tekshirish boshlandi. Buningga nima sotchilarning hukmi bo'ladi. Sotchilarning hukmi chiqib bo'lgandan keyin buningga qarta jazo e'lon qilindi. Jazo e'lon qilingandan keyin jazo ijro qilindi. Mana bu jarayonlarning hammasida hech qasda Xitoy bu jarayonlarni to'sab bo'lolmaydi.
And could I add as well that we have, as you probably know, a crowd fund available where we are looking to keep gathering funds to, in particular, support the investigation on the ground, which can be financially quite onerous. I'm sure you can understand that. So I think Nikita can mention at the end, or we can work out a way of making sure that the crowd fund is circulated, because that's really the fuel that we need to keep this going. And anything that you can contribute would immeasurably help us in keeping this alive and taking it forward and making sure that we succeed.
Let me translate this. This is also quite important. Bu ishlarninki ro'yobga chiqish uchun biz bir fondni ta'sis qilgan. Ya'ni bu ishning iqtisodiy chiqimlarini ko'tarish uchun bir fond ta'sis qilgan. Albatta bilasizlar, bu fond bu ishimizningki intayin iqtisodiy jihatda nurg'unlagan ehtiyojimiz bor. Shuning uchun hammanglarninki bizni qo'llash yuzasidan va bu ishninki muvaffaqiyatli ro'yobga chiqish uchun mush fondga o'zinglarninki fondga yordam qilishinglarni va bu yordam orqali bizni qo'llashinglarni umid qilaman.
Thank you. Yes, I've just reposted the link to the crowdfund in the comment section, so you should all be able to see that just underneath the comments that are coming in and on the YouTube video as well. Dr. Alla, there's two questions that have come in Uyghur. I don't know if you can see them on the right.
Yes, there's one question. Just a second. There's one question in Uyghur that the person is asking. Just one second. There's one person is asking that the Uyghurs in exile are the living evidence of living evidence to reveal the crimes of a Chinese government. So how are we able to save these Uyghurs from the persecution of Uyghurs? What are the concrete steps to take for this purpose?
Sorry, I'm not sure I followed the question.
Perhaps the question is more about the how to, for example, the background to this question is that if a Uyghur person gives evidence and if it's known to the Chinese government and Chinese government finds all the ways to silence that person and also persecuted the family members of that person. So it's a bit difficult for Uyghurs to come forward to give evidence because of the possibility of the punishment or retaliation of the Chinese government. And so how are we able to save these people, the evidence giving Uyghurs from Chinese persecution? I guess that's the question.
Okay, I understand. A very important question. all evidence that we gather, if persons want it kept confidential, that will happen, and the ICC will do exactly the same. So there are ways of getting evidence to ensure that persons are not known, are not exposed, and also there's a whole range of protective measures that can be put in place, even moving people from where they are if necessary, if they are in danger, to ensure that the evidence can be provided without them being named and without them in any way being open to security risks. So every step can be taken, and I'd encourage persons, if you do have evidence or know of others who do, to approach us. We will ensure that the necessary protective measures are in place to protect persons, and those can be done through our investigation and also through the ICC as well. The ICC has those measures and programs in place.
Thank you for that, Rodney. I believe we might have lost Dr. Alla, but perhaps Saleh, you could just very briefly translate, if at all possible, that answer, because I believe it's an important one for our Uyghur listeners to hear, and then I think we can wrap up there for the day. But yes, just that those comments about witnesses, I think it's important for all to hear that.
Yes, my Uyghur is not as proficient as Dr. Allah's, so I will try to do my best to briefly explain Mr. Rodney Dixon's response to the question. Hamda qisqacha shu Rodney Dixon apandimniki javobini desak, ma'lum bir savolga bu shu Uyg'urlar Xitoyning besimida qo'rqib o'tirib chiqolmaydi. Chunki bu o'tirib chiqsa Xitoy shu ularni tehdid qiladi, oilalarini tehdid qiladi degandek masalalar bor. Buni qanday qilamiz degan masalasiga endi Rodney Dixon apandim asan shu biz bilan aloqalashsanglar shohidlarni bilindirmay kimligini o'tirga chiqamay shundan qiyg'il bo'ldi. Dr. Mankinala.
Sorry, I was offline. Okay, now I'm back.
If Dr. Allah could explain, that would be better. I mean,
could you please give me the background to that, because I haven't heard much part of it. Sorry.
Don't worry. Rod, do you want to just give a very quick overview of what you mentioned?
Yes, there was a question about protective measures, as you know, and I was emphasizing that all of the evidence given is confidential if that's what persons want. It does not have to be made public, and there are a number of protective measures in place that can be used in the investigation and at the ICC as well to ensure that the evidence persons give is not made public, it doesn't identify them, and that any of their security concerns are addressed. So it's very important that you emphasize this and say persons should come forward, or if there are no persons who have relevant evidence, to come forward and not be concerned about the way in which that evidence will be used. It'll be done in a very controlled way and on their instructions and with all necessary confidentiality and protective measures in place.
Bu ispat belgüçülerinki salayeti ve belgen uçurlarınki məxfiyyətliki mutlaq saqlanıdı. Mail u belge vaqtida bo'lsin, ham bizningki shu materiallarni ishlatgan jarayonlarimizda bo'lsin, buning hammasida biz shu maxfiylikdan iborat bundaq bir nimani prinsip bo'yicha ishlarni qilamiz. Albatta bu isbot berish intayin muhim. Shundan bir vaqtda isbot belgichininki ham isbotninki kelish manbai qatorliq uchurlarning hammasininki maxfiy saqlanish intayin muhim. Biz bu ishimizda boshdan oxir bu ishlar intayin diqqat qilamiz. Ham Uyg'urlarninki bizlar aloqalashib bu vaqtda isbot berishini umid qilamiz.
Thank you very much for that. I think we might wrap up there, as I believe we've answered all the questions that have come through in both English and Uyghur. So thank you all very much in the audience who have been watching this. It seems to have been quite a good turnout. So I'm glad that you're all interested and engaged, and keeping up to date with the updates from our submission to the International Criminal Court. As soon as we have any response or any information that we can share with you as the public, we will absolutely do that, and we will make sure that we are keeping you all as informed as possible on all of these things that we are doing and anything that the ICC prosecutor decides in the coming months. I'd also like to thank all of our panelists who have been with us today. Thank you to the legal team, Rodney, Anne and Paul, for all your extremely hard work, everything that you've been doing for the past few months. And thank you, Prime Minister and Mr. President, as well for attending today and for all your support. And thank you, Dr. Alla, for your wonderful translation. Sorry for any technical glitches. It's been really great to have you on board and your support as well. I just want to reiterate once again that this work can't be done without some support from you all. So we have created the crowdfunding page, which I have posted in the comments, and it is also on the various social media pages of the East Turkestan Government in Exile and the East Turkestan National Awakening Movement. So I think without further ado, I think we can wrap up there. But thank you all very much for attending today, and we will keep you all updated in the coming months. If there's anything that you feel we haven't answered, please feel free to send an email. I will type my email into the comment section, and you can send emails that way as well. So thank you very much, and I look forward to having another session like this in the coming months. Thank you.
Bugungi programmamizni yoqtirib ko'rganingizga rahmat. Ko'rishguncha omon bo'linglar. Xayr xo'sh, Allohga omonat.